7 days a week, an exhausting workload. The Malaysians wanted the best men to lead their two teams. They wanted to learn from the experts. So they decided to play safe for the first and last time in this roller coaster project. They went to the place with a skyscraper track record a century long, New York City. These two men were to be in charge of the rival teams. They had years of experience building tall, but they had plenty to learn about working in Malaysia. Foreman Bob Pratt was in charge of Tower 1.
Suddenly there was a buzz in the air within our senior management that there was this mega project. We're all going to pack off and go off to the jungles of Malaysia and build the biggest buildings in the world.
Pratt's rival was Tower 2 foreman John Dunsford. He was in France when he got the call.
Be in Kuala Lumpur in 2 days.
The two men, complete with families, arrived in Malaysia, their home for the next 6 years. The budget clock was already counting down the time they had to finish the task. They found they couldn't even start. They hit a major obstacle before the first bucket of concrete was poured. There was something wrong with the ground.
It was one of those, like you say, worst things you can imagine moments.
The engineers discovered there'd never been a proper survey of the site. They were staggered. They needed a clear picture of the ground beneath them before any work could begin. The whole site came to a standstill. Every wasted day cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Geologists began boring hundreds of drill holes, bringing up thousands of samples. They were looking for bedrock, something solid to support the massive towers. The survey results were disastrous.
What we found was we were sitting not only on some decayed limestone, but we were sitting on the edge of a cliff.
At one side of the site there was solid limestone, but the rest of the construction area was much softer, brittle rock. It would crumble under the immense weight of two 88-story skyscrapers. If they built here, the soil would settle unevenly on one side. The towers would sink or even collapse. The team could end up with the Leaning Towers of Malaysia. The whole project was in jeopardy. Time was ticking away as they searched for a solution.
We sort of took all of our prior thinking, threw it away and said, we got to do something different here.
Charlie Thornton's idea was nothing if not daring. He proposed moving the entire building 60 meters onto the softer ground. It seemed like a mad idea, but there was clear thinking behind it. They planned to drive a series of enormous piles 120 meters down through the soil to the hard strata beneath. Then they could make their own bedrock on top. The buildings were going to sit on a vast concrete raft. In effect, they were going to nail the towers to the ground with the world's deepest foundations. It was early 1993. Construction finally got started. Building the foundation slab was going to be a huge job in itself. If the concrete dried unevenly, the whole raft would crack. It could seriously weaken its ability to support the giant building above. So they were going to have to pour it all in one go. That meant pouring concrete for 52 hours without a break, a truckload every 2.5 minutes. It was going to be the biggest concrete slab in Malaysian history. The logistics were mind-bending. Charlie Chilea was in charge.
Having not done this before, it shocked a few of us into a state of frenzy.
For the first 5 hours, everything went well. Then the rains hit Kuala Lumpur. The team had to think fast. They expected rain, but nothing like this. It was torrential, heavy tropical rain. The concrete could get too wet. It looked like they were going to fall at the first hurdle. The tiniest glitch at ground level would translate into a giant headache 450 meters up. Unless they could do something fast, the foundations would be ruined. The The team came up with a dramatic solution. They covered the entire site in canvas, the equivalent of 56 circus tents. Thanks to the biggest umbrella in the world, the foundations were finally laid successfully. No one had ever poured this much concrete at the same time before. It was only the first world record broken by the Petronas Towers. 1994 dawned, and at last, the two tower teams could move in. The race to the top was on. It was a fight from the start.
We got the head start. Tower 1 started first.
Bob Pratt in Tower 1 got a head start of a month. It looked like John Dunsford's chances of winning the tallest building prize had already been snatched from his grasp. He took it coolly.
Was I disappointed that we started 30 days behind? It was part of the plan. And on 3 years, 4 years of your life, 30 days don't really make that much difference.
The builders on both towers ran into trouble right from the start. They had serious teething problems.
The first few months of our operation was a disaster.
Nothing went right. The schedule said each of the 88 floors had to be built in only 4 days. Right now, it was taking them 8. The sense of rivalry was mounting.
That's probably the first time there was ever a dialogue of you lost time against the other tower.
The difference was clear. Bob Pratt's Tower 1 was winning over John Dunsford's Tower 2.
They definitely hit their stride and started to pull ahead.
It was very exciting. You could stand back literally week by week and watch this thing grow on the skyline of Malaysia.
Speed was vital if the builders were to meet their deadline, but the smallest error could weaken the building's structure and wreck the whole project. The team were forced to use a new construction method, so the risk of mistakes was even higher. Nobody had ever tried it on a mega skyscraper before. A normal skyscraper hangs off a steel frame built of girders that supports the weight of the building. Steel made the first skyscrapers possible. It's immensely strong, but also has a slight flex, something tall buildings need. But Malaysia didn't have a big enough steel industry, and importing it would blow the budget to pieces. What Malaysia did have was concrete, vast amounts of it. It was the only way Petronas could be built. Not only was this the tallest building on Earth, they'd be using a material never tried out on this scale before, an untested technology. Instead of a steel frame to support the weight of the building, the Petronas Towers would use a ring of 16 concrete pillars linked by beams. Between them, they would have to support 270,000 tons, 7.5 times the weight of the Titanic. No one had ever done this with concrete before. Malaysia's previous tallest building was just 250 meters high. The Petronas Towers were going to be nearly twice that. Conventional concrete would disintegrate under the load. The Petronas engineers needed a new formula. Concrete that could do the job of steel. It didn't just have to be strong. For an ultra-tall building, there had to be a degree of flexibility. Chicago is the home of the skyscraper. Close to the city is CTL, one of the world's largest concrete testing laboratories. With concrete, tiny changes in the recipe can make a huge difference to how it performs under pressure. And the Petronas Towers would certainly push it to breaking point, if not beyond.